The massive Viridian warship drifted silently in space. It was damaged and barely working. Captain Ji-Ho Lee of the Earthship Horizon looked at the alien craft through the main screen. Her eyes noticed the many blast marks on its hull. "Are there any living beings on that ship?" she asked. Officer Minho checked his screen. "Yes, Captain, many life signs, but they are weak." The distress call had reached Earth 3 weeks ago. It was a strange message that no human could understand, but everyone could feel the desperation in it. Now, as the horizon moved closer, the crew felt both excited and afraid. "Open communication," Ji-Ho ordered. The screen flickered and showed a being that made several crew members gasp. The Viridian leader, Quan, looked like a perfect hunter. He had strong shoulders, armor-like ridges on his head, and eyes that showed he came from a long line of predators, not prey. "This is Captain Ji-Ho Lee from Earth," she said. "We received your call for help." Quan's face was hard to read, but his body was clearly tense. "Captain," he said in a deep voice that the translator struggled with, "your help is unexpected." "We can offer medical help and fix your ship," Ji-Ho said. "And what do humans want in return?" Quan asked with clear suspicion. Ji-Ho stood taller. "Nothing. That's not how we do things." The Viridian leader studied her for a long moment. "You must understand our caution. In our experience, other species either run from us or try to kill us. None offer help." "Then maybe it's time for something new," Ji-Ho replied. "May I come aboard your ship?" What happened next shocked everyone. Ji-Ho, against all safety rules, transported alone onto the Viridian ship. It was either very brave or very foolish, but she understood something important. Trust had to start somewhere. The inside of the Viridian ship was hot and dim. The air smelled like metal and something earthy that Ji-Ho couldn't name. Quan led her through corridors where injured Viridians watched her with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. "Our ship was attacked by the Hive," Quan explained. "They are a machine collective that wants to control all intelligent life. We fought, but they were too many." Ji-Ho noticed that despite their injuries, none of the Viridians showed pain. "My medical team can help your wounded," she offered. Quan stopped walking. "You would allow your people to come here, among predators?" "Yes," Ji-Ho said simply. "Why would you risk this?" Quan asked. Ji-Ho thought carefully before answering. "Because sometimes the greatest risk is taking no risk at all." Within hours, human medical teams were working on the Viridian ship. Dr. Sung-Ho moved carefully among the alien patients, scanning their wounds. "Their biology is fascinating," he told Ji-Ho. "They heal much faster than humans, but they've been pushed beyond their limits." A young Viridian watched the humans with obvious confusion. "They are not afraid," she said to Quan in their language, not realizing Ji-Ho's translator could understand. "Why are they not afraid of us?" Quan had no answer. That night, as Ji-Ho was about to return to her ship, alarms sounded throughout the Viridian vessel. "The Hive has found us," Quan growled. "You should return to your ship and leave. This is not your fight." "I disagree," Ji-Ho said. "My crew stays to help." The Hive ships appeared suddenly, small but numerous. They moved with perfect coordination, like fingers on one hand. The damaged Viridian warship couldn't fight, and the Horizon was not a battle vessel. "We have no weapons that can stop them," Quan said. "Maybe we don't need weapons," Ji-Ho responded, studying the Hive ships. "Their strength is in their connection to each other. They think as one." "Yes, and we cannot break that connection," said Dai. "Quan, not with force," Ji-Ho agreed. "But what about confusion? Humans have dealt with Hive insects on Earth. Disrupt the communication and the Hive falls apart." Working quickly, Ji-Ho's team modified the Horizon's communication array to broadcast on frequencies that would interfere with the Hive ships. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was their only chance. As the Hive closed in, the humans activated their signal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the perfect formation of Hive ships began to falter. Their movements became jerky and uncoordinated. "It's working!" Officer Minho shouted. Quan stared at the screen in disbelief. "How did you know this would work?" I didn't, Jiho admitted, but sometimes you have to trust your instincts. The hive ships retreated, their perfect unity broken. On the Viridian ship, the crew looked at the humans with new eyes. Later, Quan found Jiho on the observation deck. Your people are strange, he said. You are physically weaker than us, yet you did not hesitate to help. You did not use your advantage to destroy us when we were vulnerable. That's not our way, Jiho said. What is your way? Quan asked. Jiho looked out at the stars. To reach out, to connect, to trust that others might do the same. Quan was silent for a long moment. Perhaps, he said finally, there is much our people can learn from each other. It was just a beginning, but as Jiho watched the massive Viridian standing beside her, she knew something important had changed. For the first time, predators were choosing to trust. Be sure to cite web search content with tags when you use that content. If you aren't using search content, don't include any citation tags. 2 weeks had passed since the humans first met the Viridians. The Earth ship Horizon now traveled alongside the Viridian warship. Engineers from both species worked together to repair the damage from the hive attack. Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of the Viridian ship, watching as human and alien crews passed tools back and forth. It was still strange to see them working together. The Viridian stood nearly 2 heads taller than the tallest human, with powerful bodies built for hunting. Your people adapt quickly, said Quan as he joined her. The Viridian commander moved with the quiet grace of a natural predator. Humans are good at adapting, Jiho replied. It's how we survived on Earth. Quan tilted his head. You were not the strongest species on your planet? Jiho smiled. Far from it. We had to learn to work together to survive. This seemed to confuse Quan. Among his crew, Jiho had noticed that Viridians rarely worked in groups. Each handled their own tasks, rarely asking for help even when struggling. Come, Jiho said suddenly. I want to show you something. In the meeting room of the Horizon, Jiho set up the display screen. These are animals from Earth, she explained as images appeared. Wolves, lions, bears, sharks, all predators, like your people. Quan studied the images with interest. They look powerful. They are. Any one of them could kill a human easily, Jiho said. But look at this. The screen changed to show humans working with these animals, training wolves, riding horses, swimming with sharks. Impossible, Quan whispered. These are apex predators. Why don't they attack? Trust, Jiho said simply. Over time, we learn to understand each other. Quan's eyes narrowed. Viridians have never trusted other species. In our history, all other intelligent life forms either feared us or tried to destroy us. And how has that worked for your people? Jiho asked gently. Quan did not answer, but his silence spoke volumes. That night, as both crews shared a meal, an uncomfortable moment arose. A young human engineer named Taemin accidentally bumped into a Viridian warrior called Ryu. Drinks spilled and everyone froze. In Viridian culture, such a challenge would demand a response. The humans tensed, ready for conflict, but Taemin simply bowed and offered to clean up the mess. I'm sorry, he said. My mistake. The Viridians watched in shock. To them, admitting a mistake was showing weakness. Ryu stood very still, clearly, unsure how to respond. Then, to everyone's surprise, he helped Taemin clean up. No harm done, he said awkwardly, using human phrases he must have learned from the crew. Jiho and Quan exchanged glances. Something important had just happened. Later, Quan confessed his confusion. Your engineer showed weakness, yet he did not lose respect. I don't understand. Humans don't see admitting mistakes as weakness, Jiho explained. We see it as honesty. Trust requires honesty. As days passed, more small moments of trust began to build. A Viridian engineer allowed a human to help with a difficult repair. A human doctor learned Viridian healing techniques. Slowly, barriers began to break down. Then came the real test. The long-range scanners detected a small hive scout ship approaching. "They're looking for us," Quan growled. "If they find us, they will call the main fleet. Then we must stop them before they can report back," Jiho said. The problem was that neither ship alone could catch the faster hive scout. The Viridian warship had power, but lacked speed. The Horizon had speed, but lacked weapons. "We need to work together," Jiho suggested. "Your ship provides the firepower. Ours guides the approach." Quan hesitated. This would mean giving humans partial control of a Viridian warship, something unheard of in their history. "Trust must begin somewhere," Jiho reminded him, echoing her words from their first meeting. After a long moment, Quan nodded. "Very well." The joint mission was planned quickly. The Horizon would lead, using its advanced stealth systems to get close to the hive scout. Then the Viridian ship would strike hard and fast. As the mission began, tension filled both bridges. Everything depended on perfect timing and communication. The Horizon slipped through space, getting closer to the hive scout. At the critical moment, Captain Jiho gave the signal. "Now, Quan." The Viridian warship powered up, but nothing happened. "Weapon systems failing," reported a Viridian officer. "Power fluctuation." On the Horizon, Jiho made a quick decision. "Taman, transport to the Viridian ship. Help them fix it." Sending their best engineer to the Viridian ship at this crucial moment was a huge risk. If the Viridians decided to abandon the plan, Taman would be trapped aboard their vessel. Quan understood the gesture. Jiho was trusting them with one of her crew. When Taman arrived, the Viridian engineers were trying to fix the power problem individually, each working on separate systems. "Stop," Taman said. "We need to work together." To everyone's surprise, Ryu, the warrior from the earlier incident, stepped forward. "Show us," he said. Under Taman's guidance, the Viridians formed a chain, passing tools and calling out readings to each other. Working as one unit, they fixed the power fluctuation in record time. The weapons came online just as the hive scout detected them. The Viridian ship fired, destroying the scout before it could send a message to the main fleet. Both crews celebrated the victory. It was small, but significant. That evening, Quan sought out Jiho again. "Your engineer taught my people something important today," he said. "What was that?" asked Jiho. 3 months had passed since the first meeting between humans and Viridians. Now 5 Earth ships traveled with the Viridian warship. What began as a rescue mission had grown into something new. In the science lab of the Viridian ship, Dr. Yuna studied human DNA samples under a special scanner. Beside her stood Nari, the chief Viridian scientist. Both women had spent weeks comparing their species. "I don't understand," Nari said, pointing to the results on the screen. "Humans have the teeth of plant eaters, yet you eat meat. You lack natural weapons, yet you became your planet's dominant species." Yuna nodded. "Humans are neither pure predators nor pure prey. We're something in between." Nari's eyes widened slightly. Among Viridians, this was a sign of great surprise. "A paradox," she said softly. "Exactly," Yuna agreed. "We were hunted by stronger animals for much of our early history, but we also learned to hunt." On the training deck, another kind of learning was happening. Junho, a human combat specialist, was working with a group of Viridian warriors. They were practicing formation fighting, something completely new to the Viridians. "Again," Junho called out, "move as one unit, not 8 individuals." The Viridians tried to follow his instructions, but it was clearly difficult for them. In their culture, warriors fought alone to prove their strength. Working together felt wrong to them. Daehyun, a young Viridian with bright green markings on his face, stopped in frustration. "This makes no sense," he growled. "If I am strong enough to defeat an enemy, why should I wait for others?" Junho didn't answer immediately. Instead, he picked up 8 metal rods. He handed one to Daehyun. "Break it," he said. Daehyun snapped the rod easily. Then Junho took the 7 remaining rods and bound them together with cord. He handed this bundle to Daehyun. "Now break these." The Viridian tried, his powerful muscles straining, but the bundle wouldn't break. "This is why we work together," Junho explained. "One human is weak. Many humans working together are strong." The Viridians looked at each other, understanding beginning to dawn in their eyes. That evening, Captain Jiho met with Commander Quan in the observation room. Through the large window, they could see distant stars and the occasional flash of light from passing ships. "Your scientist Yuna has a strange theory," Quan said. "She believes humans succeeded because you are both predator and prey." Jiho nodded. "It's true. We know what it's like to be hunted, so we developed empathy. But we also know what it's like to hunt, so we developed strategy. And this empathy," Quan said the unfamiliar word carefully. "This is why humans help others even when there is no benefit?" "Sometimes," Jiho replied. "We understand fear and pain because we've experienced them. It helps us connect with others, even those very different from us." Quan was quiet for a moment. "Viridians have always been apex predators. We never learned to fear only to be feared." There was something like sadness in his voice. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call. "Captain Commander," came Officer Minho's voice. "Long-range scanners have detected hive ships approaching. At least 3 this time." In the command center, both crews gathered to plan. The tactical display showed the hive ships moving in perfect formation, like a single organism with many parts. "They're changing their approach pattern," Junho noticed. "They've adapted to our last strategy." "Then we must create a new one," Quan said. He turned to the Viridian warriors who had been training. With Junho, "Daehyun, what did you learn today?" The young Viridian stepped forward, looking uncertain. "That many are stronger than one?" "Show me," Quan challenged. What followed surprised everyone. Daehyun gathered the warriors who had trained with him. Instead of each suggesting their own plan, as Viridians normally would, they huddled together and spoke quietly. Then Daehyun approached the tactical display. "The hive expects us to attack directly," he said. "But what if we don't?" He outlined a plan where the ships would work in pairs, one human, one Viridian, approaching from different directions. Jiho and Quan exchanged glances. This was new, a Viridian suggesting coordination rather than direct confrontation. "It might work," Jiho said. Quan nodded slowly. "We will try it." The battle that followed was unlike any before. Human ships, faster but lightly armed, darted in to draw the hive's attention. Viridian ships, slower but powerful, followed with devastating attacks. When a hive ship targeted one pair, another would strike from behind. For the first time, humans and Viridians weren't just working side by side, they were working as one force. When the last hive ship exploded, cheers erupted across both fleets. On the command deck, Daehyun looked stunned at their success. "How does it feel?" Junho asked him. "Strange," Daehyun admitted. "I did not strike the final blow, yet I feel satisfied." Later, as the crews made repairs, Dr. Yuna found Nari in the science lab. The Viridian scientist was reviewing footage of the battle. "The human paradox," Nari said without looking up. "Perhaps it is something Viridians can learn." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked. "For millions of years we have been pure predators," Nari explained. "Always hunting, never hunted. We never learned to work together because we never needed to." She turned to face Yuna. "Until now." That night, as both fleets continued their journey together, something had changed. The Viridians had begun to understand a fundamental truth about humans, that their greatest strength came not from being perfect predators, but from being both predator and prey. And in that understanding lay the seeds of a new kind of relationship between their species. 1 year had passed since the Viridians and humans first met. Their small fleet had grown. 3 more human ships had joined them, along with 2 vessels from the peaceful Aloran species, who had been hiding from the hive for decades. On the main command ship, now called Unity, Captain Jiho stood before, a large screen showing the movement of stars and planets. Beside her, Commander Quan studied the same map with intense focus. They had both changed over the past year. Jiho's hair now had strands of gray from stress. Quan had a new scar across his face from a recent battle. The hive is gathering here. Jiho pointed to a cluster of dots near a red giant star. Our scouts count at least 30 ships, more than we've ever faced, Quan noted. His voice remained calm, but Jiho knew him well enough now to hear the concern. Officer Minho entered the room with a data pad. Captain Commander, the refugee ships are asking if they should try to reach the neutral zone. Behind their small fighting fleet were 5 large transport ships carrying civilians from worlds attacked by the hive. Protecting these ships had slowed their progress, but neither Jiho nor Quan had ever suggested leaving them behind. No, both leaders said at the same time. They looked at each other in surprise. Then Quan nodded for Jiho to continue. The neutral zone is too far, she explained. The hive would catch them before they got halfway there. Minho nodded and left to deliver the message. Jiho turned back to Quan. We need a new strategy. No, Quan said, surprising her. We need to use an old one. In the training room, Daehyun, now a squad leader, was working with mixed teams of humans and Viridians. Over the months, these practice sessions had changed dramatically. At first, the Viridians had struggled with the concept of teamwork. Now they moved in perfect sync with their human partners. The key is communication, Daehyun told a young human recruit named Suman. Know where your partner is without looking. Suman nodded seriously. Though only 22 years old, she had already fought in 3 battles against the hive. An alarm sounded throughout the ship. All personnel to battle stations, came Jiho's voice over the speakers. This is not a drill. The hive had found them sooner than expected. As crew members rushed to their positions, Jiho and Quan stood side by side on the command deck. They've changed their formation again, Jiho noted, watching the enemy ships approach. They're learning from each battle. So are we, Quan replied. The plan was risky. The Unity would lead most of the fighting force straight toward the hive fleet, a direct confrontation that the Viridian ships had once preferred. Meanwhile, 3 faster human ships would circle around to protect the refugee vessels. As the battle began, the hive revealed their new tactic. Instead of attacking as one unit, their ships split into 3 groups. One engaged the Unity and its companions. Another moved to intercept the human ships. The third, largest group headed straight for the refugee ships. They've anticipated our plan, Minho called out as alarms blared across the command deck. A massive explosion rocked the Unity. Sparks flew from control panels and several crew members were thrown to the floor. Shields down to 30%, reported a Viridian officer. Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. Another hit shook the ship violently. Jiho was thrown against a console, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. As she struggled to her feet, she saw that the main power was failing. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the deck. We should retreat, Minho suggested, helping Jiho up. Save who we can. Jiho looked at Quan, expecting him to reject the idea of retreat. To her, surprised he was quiet, thinking deeply. The refugees, Quan said finally. We must save them first. It was a response no one would have expected from a Viridian a year ago. Their culture had always valued strength and victory above all else. How? Jiho asked. Our engines are damaged. We can't reach them in time. Quan turned to the communications officer. Open a channel to all Viridian ships. When the channel opened, Quan spoke clearly and with authority. This is Commander Quan. All ships form defensive formation around the refugee vessels. Priority is their protection, not victory. The Viridian captains responded immediately, their ships breaking off from battles to regroup around the civilian transports. You're sacrificing tactical advantage, Jiho said quietly. I'm choosing to protect those who cannot protect themselves, Quan corrected her. A concept I learned from humans. With the Unity's engines failing, Quan made another unprecedented decision. Captain Jiho will take command of the fleet. All vessels will follow her orders. Never before had a Viridian given command to another species. The significance of this moment was not lost on anyone on the bridge. Despite severe damage to several ships, the combined fleet managed to form a protective barrier around the refugee vessels. When the Hive pressed their attack, they found themselves facing desperate defenders fighting not for glory or territory, but for the lives of others. Hours later, as emergency repairs were underway, Jiho found Quan in the medical bay. He was having a wound on his arm treated but insisted on standing rather than lying down. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen a Viridian do," Jiho told him. Quan looked confused. "Leading the defense?" "No," Jiho said with a small smile. "Trusting someone else to lead?" Quan was quiet for a moment. "A year ago I would have seen that as weakness," he admitted. "Now I understand it was strength." Outside the viewport, the stars continued their silent journey across space. The fleet had survived, though damaged. The refugees were safe. And something fundamental had changed in the relationship between humans and Viridians. Trust had been tested in fire, and it had held. 2 months after the Great Battle, the combined fleet gathered near a small blue moon. Ships from 5 different species now flew together: human, Viridian, Iloran, and 2 others who had joined more recently. They formed the largest alliance ever seen in this part of the galaxy. On the Bridge of the Unity, now repaired but still bearing scars from previous battles, Captain Jiho looked out at the assembled fleet. Commander Quan stood beside her, his posture straight despite the metal prosthetic arm that had replaced his left limb lost in the last fight. "The Hive grows stronger," Jiho said, studying the latest intelligence reports. "Their main fleet now includes over 100 ships, and their central command station has been located," Quan added. He pointed to a spot on the star map where a massive structure orbited a dying star. "This is where they receive their instructions, where the Hive mind controls all ships." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of representatives from the other species. Each looked very different. The tall, peaceful Elorans with their 4 arms, the insect-like Taraki whose technology had proven vital, and the crystalline Mavari whose homeworld had been the first to fall to the Hive. "We have gathered as requested," said Han, the Eloran leader. "Is it true? Have you found a way to defeat the Hive?" Jiho nodded. "We believe so, but it will require something from all of us." The plan was both simple and impossible. While the combined fleet engaged the Hive ships, a small team would infiltrate the central command station. Their goal was not to destroy it, but to change the core programming, to break the forced unity of the Hive, and give each member freedom of choice. "Who will lead this mission?" asked the Taraki representative, her antennae twitching nervously. "We will," Quan answered, gesturing to himself and Jiho. "A human and a Viridian, working together." The next 3 days were spent in intense preparation. On the training deck, Jiho and Quan practiced with their team. Officer Minho, the young human Suman, Daehyun, the Viridian squad leader, and specialists from each allied species. "The Hive drones will respond to any sign of hostility," Jiho explained as they rehearsed their approach. "Our advantage is that they don't expect different species to work together. Because they can't imagine trust between unlike beings," Quan added. "Their strength is unity through control. Ours is unity through choice." The morning of the mission, Jiho found Quan in the observatory looking out at the stars. In the 1.5 years since they'd met, she had learned to read his moods, despite how different Viridian expressions were from human ones. "You're worried," she said, joining him at the viewport. "Not about the mission," Quan replied. "About what comes after. If we succeed, if the Hive is freed from central control, you're wondering if our alliance will still hold," Jiho finished for him. Quan nodded. "Without a common enemy, will Viridians return to our old ways? Will humans remember that we were once feared throughout the galaxy?" Before Jiho could answer, the alert sounded. It was time to begin. The battle unfolded just as they had planned. The combined fleet engaged the Hive ships, drawing attention away from a small transport that slipped through the chaos. On board were Jiho, Quan, and their specialized team. They docked with the central station using codes stolen in previous encounters. Inside, the station was a maze of metal corridors filled with Hive drones, once individual beings from various species now connected to the central mind. "They're not attacking," whispered Suman as they moved through the station. Why aren't they attacking? They don't see us as a threat yet, Minho explained. Look at our team. We're from 5 different species. The Hive can't imagine us working together effectively. Their first real challenge came at a massive security door blocking access to the central control room. The Taraki specialist studied the locking mechanism. I can't bypass it, she admitted. The system requires simultaneous input from opposite sides of the room. No single being could do it alone. Then it's a good thing we're not alone, Jiho said. She and Quan moved to the 2 control panels. Working together, they initiated the override sequence. The massive door slowly opened, revealing the heart of the Hive, a glowing central processor surrounded by data streams. But as they entered, a secondary security system activated. Energy barriers sprang up, separating team members from each other. Jiho found herself cut off from the others, facing a squad of Hive drones approaching with weapons raised. Jiho, Quan called from beyond the barrier. I can't reach you. Complete the mission, she called back, drawing her own weapon. I'll hold them off. What happened next would be told in stories across many worlds for generations to come. As Jiho prepared to fight alone, Quan did something no Viridian had ever done before. He placed his hand on the energy barrier and pushed, not with his strength but with his mind. Years of working with humans had taught him something Viridians had never valued before: empathy. He focused not on his own power, but on his connection to Jiho. To everyone's amazement, the barrier flickered. Quan pushed harder, and suddenly the barrier failed. He rushed through, joining Jiho against the drones. How did you do that? She asked as they fought side by side. I trusted, he said simply. Not in myself alone, but in us. Together they reached the central processor. As the rest of the team held off the drones, Jiho and Quan worked to change the core programming. Not to destroy the Hive, but to free it. When the final code was entered, the entire station went dark for a moment. Then, one by one, lights came back on, but different than before. The drones stopped fighting. Some looked confused, while others simply stood still, experiencing individual thought for the first time. 1 month later, representatives from all allied species gathered on a neutral planet to form the first Galactic Council. Among them were former Hive members, now free to choose their own path. Jiho and Quan stood at the ceremony, watching as historic agreements were signed. You were right to worry, Jiho told him. Everything has changed. Yes, Quan agreed, but not in the way I feared. He looked across the room where Viridians mingled freely with other species. For millions of years we were feared as the galaxy's predators. Now, you're its protectors, Jiho finished. Quan smiled, a gesture he had learned from humans. The true turning point wasn't defeating the Hive, he said. It was the day a human captain stepped alone onto a predator's ship, offering trust before it was earned. And a day when predators chose to return that trust, Jiho added. Around them, the first true peace in galactic history was beginning, not based on force or fear, but on a simple truth that both humans and Viridians had learned. True strength comes not from standing alone, but from standing together. That together we are stronger than alone, Quan replied. This goes against everything Viridians believe, and yet I cannot deny what I saw. Jiho smiled. Trust isn't built in a day, but it's built in moments like these. For the first time since they met, Quan offered his hand in the human gesture of friendship that Jiho had shown him earlier. As they clasped hands, both understood that something fundamental had changed. The predators were learning to trust,